Good evening and welcome to Sporlitics, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna. He just went out and he came back. The Nigerian moderate Republican, Stephen, the independent thinker, Keith, the constitutional conservative, and my cousin Todd. We've got a full show for you tonight. The Eagles, I don't have any green lipstick on, but this week they are still undefeated, the only undefeated team in the NFL. Police say a 19-year-old former student killed a teacher and a 16-year-old student at the Central Visual and Performing Arts High School in St. Louis, Missouri. The gunman was pronounced dead after a gunfight with authorities. Kyle Larson wins at Homestead-Miami Speedway. Stephen is here to discuss NASCAR playoffs. 2 weeks until the general election. And my question is, have you voted? Are you ready to vote? And the country is wondering if Democrats will win or lose the majority. In less than an hour from right now, in Pennsylvania, Dr. Oz and Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, who suffered a stroke this past May and will need visual assistance, will debate live on TV. But don't watch it while we're on. Check them out after we go off. Brittany Griner, you remember her. WNBA star, Olympic medalist, was playing in Russia when she was arrested for having marijuana. She was convicted. She started an appeal, and today her appeal was denied by a Russian court. A TRIPLEDEMIC. That's what they're calling it. Do you know what that is? A TRIPLEDEMIC is affecting the United States and the United Kingdom. It is RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, the flu, and COVID-19. President Biden received his booster today and urged all Americans to get theirs and your flu shot in preparation for avoiding the TRIPLEDEMIC. The Philadelphia Phillies defeated the San Diego Padres and advanced to the World Series against the Houston Astros, with the first game on this Friday in Houston. King Charles of Great Britain invited Rishi Sunak, the newly elected leader of the Conservative Party of the United Kingdom, to become Prime Minister and form a new government today. Prepping for the World Cup in Qatar and LGBTQ+. Do you know what that's about? We'll talk about it. Experts warn that drops in home prices could lead to a housing market crash. What will that mean for the American taxpayer? Major League Soccer Cup playoffs keep following the form guide as two top seeds, Los Angeles Football Club and the Philly Union advance. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. He put a hold He temporarily blocked a judge's order requiring Senator Lindsey Graham to testify to a grand jury in Georgia in a criminal investigation into whether then President Donald Trump and his allies unlawfully tried to overturn the 2020 election results. That and more, if we can fit it in. First up, we've got NASCAR and Stephen. NASCAR, Stephen, do you want to talk about the Miami Homestead and Kyle Larson winning and what that means for the playoffs for NASCAR?
Well, I was very happy to see Kyle Larson win, although he's not in the playoffs anymore. He got screwed up. He was in a melee just a little while back. But it was really nice for him to win. Basically because he had such a bad race last week when he got wrecked. unceremoniously, and to come back and win the next week was great. And my dad can't make his pick, so I picked him for my dad, and he won. That's just always a cherry on top. And during the race in the pits, they're in Miami, and the sun was in his eyes. The dirt was all over the windshield, and Martin Truex in front of him had missed his stall, and he ran into the back of him, spun him out in the pits, and almost ran over a couple of his own guys when it was inadvertent. And after it was all over, both of them said, like Kyle Larson said, "I'm really sorry," and Martin Truex said, "I couldn't see, he couldn't see, everybody's cool." This is what happens in racing. But it was a great race overall. It was good to see people being cool with each other when they don't have to be, but they understood the situation. Nobody was trying to hurt anybody. And there's 2 more races left for the championship, and we have Joey Logano at 41.06, Ross Chastain at 41.01. And if you remember, for months I've been saying take Ross Chastain to win it all at a long shot a long time ago. Well, I did that, and he is 5 points away from winning it. But it is really close up top. He has 41.01. Elliott behind him, who is always somehow the champion, he has 40.93. So it's not a given that Ross Chastain will win, but I'm really pulling for him. He brings so much to racing. He's not conformative as a lot of other people are, and he just does his own thing, which is really cool. And it's gotten him this far, and I hope he wins it all because that would be nice for everyone concerned, and it would be good for racing if he won it all. And if any of the guys in the top 5 win, like Denny Hamlin's in 5th, and he's at 40.82, I mean, he could win it all. And it would be good for him as well. He's won it before, but Ross Chastain's never won the championship. And to me, it would just be a really good year if it happened that way. There's been so many people who have won races this year, more than ever. More different people have won this races than anybody ever. So it's been a great year. It's been so competitive. It's like the parity that we have in the NFL. We have it in NASCAR, which makes it really cool. And you just don't know from one week to the next. We have Martinsville next week, and then the last race is in Phoenix. And both of these tracks are super competitive. Anybody can win, and anybody can win the championship at this point. And that's what makes this a lot of fun.
Yeah, I see, Cousin Todd. I see. Thank you. I was trying to get off, and I knew Cousin Todd couldn't wait to say, "We can't hear you. We can't hear you." Anyway, Aguna, let me share my screen. That's what I was trying to do actually before I got off of before Cousin Todd jumped in, or was going to jump in. He hadn't jumped in yet. Look at my screen. Rhys Hoskins lead Phillies. Heads Phillies power surge and the National League Championship game for win. Do you want to talk about that at all? About how we, beat out San Diego? Aguna, you put yourself on mute.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be a great series for the city of Philadelphia and for the Phillies. The way they closed it out, I think Harper hit a home run, and was it at the 6th or 7th inning or whatever to put them over the top. They won 4-3. But yeah, I mean, they won the series 4-1, and they're going on to play the Astros in the World Series, which is going to be like a David and Goliath type underdog, Rocky type of series. The Astros haven't lost a game yet, so they swept both the Yankees, and I forgot who they played before, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where the Phillies are already underdogs, and it just goes with the mantra of Philadelphia. But I mean, and again, we'll probably get into a little bit more of this when we get into sports, but it looks really good for Philadelphia sports right now. Put a caveat on the Sixers because they're starting off with a slow start, but they finally beat Indiana last night. But the MLS, you got the Union one on the
Wait a
doorstep.
minute, Guna. Wait a minute, Guna. We are in the sports before you go. He's taking Philly by storm. But, and Stephen and I were talking about how we're so happy that Philadelphia is finally being recognized on the world stage for our sports, because a lot of times we get really ignored and dissed by all the major sportscasters, including Chris Collingsworth. And I can't stand the way he dogs Philadelphia. But
Philly hates him.
Nobody likes Chris Collingsworth.
Stop it.
I mean, he's a loser. He's from the Bengals. What has he ever accomplished?
Aguna, let me ask Aguna. Go ahead, Cousin Todd, before I ask Aguna.
Oh, yay. I was just going to agree with him. I was going to agree with him with the Phillies. They're winning like crazy. And if they keep this up, I think the Phillies will take it all the way to the Super Bowl.
Right on, Todd.
Todd, man, you're in like an echo chamber, man. Week after week, Keith doesn't learn anything, and neither does Todd.
So, like I was saying,
I don't know what he means.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Aguna, this is Houston's 4th trip to the World Series in the last 6 years. They will host the first 2 games in Houston against Philadelphia with the home field advantage. Will they win both games and Philadelphia have to come back and go against them? Now, remember, Houston has a serious depth chart for pitchers. And so what that means, Cousin Todd, and I know you probably don't know this.
Yes, I do.
Because you think if the Phillies win, they're going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I know you don't know this. So baseball teams have like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th backups. And so sometimes they don't always have to use all their backups in order to win games. But they do that as a strategy to win games. Maybe use this one to pitch and that one to pitch. So Houston is well known for having some really good backup pitchers. So Aguna, do you want to talk to that and address how Philadelphia can possibly fight against that? Because although we have a pretty good backup, I don't think ours is as diversified as Houston's.
No, and without going through all the details, you're right. It's a strategy around who they put on their in their bullpen and when and all of that. Like I said, they haven't lost a game yet in the playoffs, and Philadelphia at least has to get one.
But this is the 2nd consecutive year that the Houston Astros have gone to the World Series. They're hungry, right?
I don't know about hungry. I know they're talented, but
Philadelphia if they're going 2 years and they swept everybody, they haven't lost a game. It sounds like to me they're hungry.
Yeah, I mean, they're talented. It's nothing to do with hunger. You got talent on your roster. You don't. I mean, hunger is just a secondary. But like I was saying, Philadelphia at least needs to win one down in Houston to make it a series. If they give up both and fall down 2-0 against this, especially with the bullpen that the Astros have, it's going to be tough. So if they can sneak it, it'd be ideal for game 1. But I'll take game 2. But if they can go back and flip the series and make it, get the home field back in Philly, I think is a really good chance that they can pull it out. One of the things that you look at game 5, if there's a game 5, it's going to be in Philadelphia the day before the Eagles play the Texans down in Texas, because the Eagles play the Texans next Thursday for Thursday Night Football. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know if that's a coincidence or, depending on how these games go. But there are a lot of people believing in Philadelphia right now. It's already great that they got to the pennant now. They got 4 more games, and the Phillies will have a world title. And I think the city is hungry for another world title. So it'll be on time.
They already greased down the poles so Todd's cousins couldn't climb up them.
Oh, come on. And what do you mean they're hungry? You don't know if they eaten dinner or not. So
let me share my screen because Todd thinks he's got jokes.
What?
He's just a real comedian today. You're rolling now, Todd. Yeah. You're rolling tonight.
So can you see the screen? It said, why will it or won't it work against the Phillies in the World Series? It says, certainly the Phillies lineup, the way it's hitting right now, poses a greater challenge than the Mariners or the Yankees did for Houston. But as long as Dusty Baker manages with proper urgency and uses his bullpen as he can, which means to mix and match and do not allow Kyle Schwarber, Reese Hoskins, JT Realmuto, and Bryce Harper third looks unless the starters truly cruise, and Houston has the goods to neutralize Philadelphia's offense similarly to how it did Seattle and New York's. But on the other hand, one person says Lee says the Astros are a better team on paper. But being underdogs hasn't stopped the Phillies so far in the postseason after coming in as third place team from the National League East and beating the Cardinals, Braves, and Padres on the path to the World Series. And Aguna, what that tells me and what Lee said to me makes me feel as though it's like the underdogs when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And remember, they wore those big dog things on there when they won the Super Bowl, as if to say, we're the underdogs. The same thing couldn't happen, for Philly in this World Series. Yes,
well, that would be the ideal Cinderella story. But again, it's a little bit different circumstance. I know there's a lot of momentum behind the Phillies. It was great that we knocked off the Braves, the world champion Braves, right? So you got some redemption there. But, unless they win 4 more games, a lot of people are going to say that they fell short. I do think there's a story behind Harper, winning the MVP and a series. Because I know when he got chased out of Washington, he missed it by a year, right? So I think it'll be a good news stories if he finally gets his title. But we'll see. They got to finish it. There's a lot. It's a huge uphill climb when you're going down there to Houston. Again, they haven't lost a game yet in the playoffs.
I know. I'm a little fearful. I must say, I'm a little scared. I'm scared about that. So let's go on, Aguna, and talk about the best team in the world, the undefeated team in the NFL, who is getting no dap from the commentators. Who is that, Aguna? What team is that?
It's the Philadelphia Eagles. That's I think part of it is they're catering to the Philadelphia fans' paranoia, if you would, because we don't like it when we don't get respect, right? But at the same time, it's good to pick on Eagles fans because they're going to react a certain way. And at the end of the day, we're undefeated. Until we're not undefeated, people are going to keep speculating on how good we really are. No question there is a easy schedule, but it's funny how when the Eagles have the same schedule as the Cowboys beat Detroit, it's all okay, Dak is back. The Eagles beat Detroit, well, it's only Detroit. So there is a double standard when it comes to the sports media, when it comes to Philadelphia. And even in the bye week, the Eagles the bye week came at a good time. Lane Johnson hopefully will get out of concussion protocol. There are a couple of very few injuries, knock on wood, that going into the Steelers game, which is a winnable game. Pickett has thrown 3 interceptions out of the last 4 games. So you think that the Eagles at home should be able to take care of business against the Steelers. The Steelers haven't had, it's a very lopsided series when it comes to the Eagles versus Steelers historically. I think we've won like twice as many games against them than they have against us. We don't play them a lot, and we play them once every 4 years. So it's not a huge long series, but Steelers fans come and they're a dedicated fan base, just like the Eagles are a dedicated fan base. But if you look at where the Steelers are and where the Eagles are, it's 2 different trajectories. They're still this rookie quarterback, Pickett, is still trying to find his legs. Again, he's thrown 3 interceptions in the last 4 games. He had 2 games with 3 interceptions. So the Eagles should handle business, and they have to in order to keep pace with the NFC East. You see how the Giants only have 1 loss. I don't know how the Giants keep winning. I think all 7 games they've won by 1 possession. And then you got the Cowboys, of course, overrated defense. And again, when their defense steps up against sorry teams, all of a sudden it's the greatest defense. Like they had the greatest offensive line. So it's always overrated and overhyped. And then you have the Commanders who just won't go away. I know Steven said last show that, that Heineke would be coming in there and making a difference. And he beat Aaron Rodgers. And so I think Aaron Rodgers kind of, choked a little bit, but at the same time, Heineke made some throws in there that were on the money. And I had McLaren on my fantasy team, and we did pretty good. So I won both of my fantasy games. So I'm not mad about that. But the Commanders, you're 3-4. They're not quite out of it yet. I mean, you look at some of these other teams in the NFC. 3-4 looks pretty good right now. So
right. So let's
the NFC
hear,
East is looking very tight.
So let's hear Stephen.
Eagles are doing well. I saw the.
Gosh.
What in the world is it? The last game I saw, let me see. I think that was last week. Our quarterback is doing good. I just hope Randall Cunningham can stay healthy, and they may go all the way to the World Series.
Oh, Stephen, I was waiting for his little da-da-da-da-da-da. Stephen, talk about your Commanders, please.
I liked it better when he was doing the toilet flush.
Yeah.
Bring that back.
Bring the toilet flush back, Cousin Ty. Go ahead. Stephen, you're on mute. Stephen, I didn't put you on mute. You put yourself on mute.
Oh, I didn't mean
There
to.
you go.
Todd,
No,
we didn't talk. We used to like
doing.
tennis when
He's
Serena
not here.
played. We didn't make silly jokes. Aguna and I didn't make silly jokes. Aguna, the best thing it is, I've been saying it's the reason when the Eagles are doing well, people are doing well in our division, is because we used to be called that. You might be too young for this, but we're called the NFC least instead of the NFC East. And guess what?
Definitely too young for that.
We have the best conference. We have y'all at undefeated. We have the Giants at almost undefeated, the Cowboys at almost undefeated, and the Redskins are going to be 4-4 this week because they're going to be.
There's no such thing as the Redskins.
The Redskins are going to be 4-4 this week.
No such thing, ma'am.
Because we got rid of our horrible quarterback, Wentz, and then the coach said a couple of weeks ago, "What's the problem in this division?" You know what the problem is? It's the quarterback. He couldn't scream it any louder, so we're happy about it. We got Heineke, who should have started from the beginning. Is he as good as a lot of other quarterbacks? No, but you know what? He has a huge heart, and he is a smart guy, and he knows the game. And we're going to beat the Colts because the Colts got rid of their quarterback again. Colts can't get their quarterback straight. Matt Ryan, I could do better than Matt Ryan, and I probably couldn't do that well. But I could do better than him. He's thrown I think 75 interceptions in just a few games. So
then why do they keep him?
Redskins, Todd, are going to beat the Colts, and none of us will have a losing record after week 8, and that's amazing for us to be that way. And I know the Eagles will win. I'm pulling for the Eagles. I have Hurts as my quarterback. I have AJ Brown as my top wide receiver, and they're
okay. So wait. You're talking fantasy football, right? You're talking fantasy football now, right?
Yeah, and they're going to roll off a bye.
Todd doesn't know anything about fantasy football, and honestly, I don't know anything about fantasy football.
What you don't, I do. Just like I told you.
Todd, I'll tell you about fantasy football, but we don't want to hear your fantasies.
Don't even laugh. He's a copycat. He just steals the material right out of my mouth.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about this week in the NFL. Buffalo had a bye week, just like we did. Los Angeles Rams had a bye week. Minnesota Vikings had a bye week. Did Dak's return to Dallas give them a head start against the other teams? And what was going on with Green Bay? What was going on with Denver? What was going on with Green Bay? What was going on with Denver? What was going on with Tampa? What in the world? Why are these big time teams with these quarterbacks just seem to be falling apart?
Yeah, and if you think about it, if you would have told me going into week 1 that the Washington Commanders would have the same record as the Rams, 49ers, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, who else? The Cardinals. These were all supposed to be playoff bound, solid teams. I know going into this year, the NFC West was supposed to be stacked because you had the Rams and 49ers and Cardinals with Kyler Murray, and then it was supposed to be the Seattle Seahawks on the bottom of that division. Lo and behold, Seattle is on top of that division after getting rid of Russell Wilson. and they're 4-3, and they're in the driver's seat right now. Just like, the Packers aren't on top of. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings are on top of the North Division. So all that being said, it's old age. These quarterbacks are getting old, and what's happening is they've dominated for so long in the league that they just can't afford to put the pieces around them to sustain it, right? So if you look at what's going on in NFC, Tampa Bay, they had that run. You had Brady surrounded by all those, great pieces on defense. Ndamukong Suh was down there, Shaq Barrett. You had these guys. So you had a defense and you had Brady just managing the game. He's since taken a tank dive from there because you can't keep all those players. You look at the Rams last year; they won the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford, they had Ramsey, they had Odell, they had all these guys. They had, O'Donnell. So it's like you got these guys, and you're paying these quarterbacks top notch. Aaron Rodgers for forever was getting these high, big dollar contracts, and so now what you have is you got these up and coming teams with young quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, which we just happen to have on his rookie deal, is we could put the pieces in place to help him, succeed. All he has to do is kind of step up and manage the game a little bit more. And that's what's happening. So, yeah, I think it's going to continue to see this trend. You see the Bears with Fields, and some of the other young quarterbacks are going to, just once you put the pieces around them, they'll be able to step up. So hopefully, and then the schedule helps as well. So you'll see this flip in it always happens in the NFL, though. You have it's cyclical. Teams can't sustain it after 2 or 3 years. You only have a 2 or 3 year window in order to make a run. Otherwise, free agency is going to catch up with you. So it's good to see. It makes it for more parity. But, yeah, there's still a lot of football to go. And so it's going to be interesting in the second half of the season to see who the real football – who are the real teams versus the fakers, because there are a lot of fakers out there, right, namely the Dallas Cowboys, because those guys, they're a bunch of bums, man. They're such an overrated defense. They do not have a defense.
Wait a minute, Stacey. Let me rebut Stacey. Let me rebut him really quick. Roger, you're going to make me an apologist for the Packers. They lost their number one, Devontae Adams, which is probably the best receiver in the entire NFL. Also, his other players are hurt and not playing, all of them. And plus, Rodgers is hurt. Rodgers is hurt the same way Dak was hurt, and he's having a hard time. But it's not
poor
his
baby
fault.
Hurt his thumb. The poor baby hurt his thumb.
It's not his fault that the Packers aren't doing well right now. It's not his fault.
Is it?
In the same way with Brady, it's not because Brady is old.
Whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? Whose fault is it?
I'm going to tell you, Brady has Mike Evans. Mike Evans had a perfect pass put in his hands, and he did this. He just and couldn't catch it. This is what's happening.
That happens.
He couldn't catch
the ball. It was against the Panthers, Steven. Give me a break. It's the Panthers. They were playing the freaking Panthers, Steven, who had just got rid of their number one offensive weapon. There's no excuse.
Rodgers. You're talking about Stafford. Stafford's
Rodgers. Look. Remember, Rodgers has always elevated the game of the people around him. I get it. Devontae Adams went to the Raiders, but what, do the Raiders have like a 2-5 record or something like that? It's not like Aaron Rodgers.
They don't have Aaron Rodgers.
David Carr isn't a slouch either. He's not a slouch, though. Come on. I wouldn't say he's Aaron Rodgers, but he's a damn good quarterback. So
you have your Philly biases, and you can't be fair or honest.
No, I am being fair. I am being fair. I'm not going to cater to the Green Bay apologist. Okay, I'm not going to say my thumb is hurt, so he's losing 3 in a row. Give me a break. It's called football for a reason. Okay, it's a gladiator sport. It's not a pansy sport. Okay, if he's hurt, then he needs to get out the game. If he's hurt, he get out the game. If he's hurt, get out the game. Okay, stop hurting your team.
He should. Aaron Rodgers should get out. He should take off a few weeks, just like Dak Prescott did. But Dak Prescott's
they lost 3 in a row. They lost 3 in a row with him. So
against players that are older, like Serena. You're always against older people, but guess what?
I'm not against older. It's just the reality of it. I'm not against them. It's just the reality.
Get out the game soon.
Are you saying it's because you're old? Are you saying it's because you're old?
I'm saying it because you and I are both old.
Don't get mad. Hey, look. I can't help it that I look young, Stephen, but I'm not against older players. I'm not an ageist. I'm not an ageist. Stop getting that. You're self-conscious. You're being self-conscious.
You're celebrating your own demise with your
age. Once you're over 30, you're done in the league.
No, you're not.
Yes.
Come
on.
Right, soccer.
We're
looking at soccer. Philadelphia Union, Los Angeles. They're going to play. It says the MLS Cup playoffs are in full swing. This is CBSSports.com. They're in full swing with Los Angeles Football Club, Austin Football Club, and Philadelphia Union and New York City Football Club as the final four teams remaining. But a unique quirk of the league is that the final isn't held at a neutral location like Champions League or European League Cup finals. It's instead held at the home of the stadium of the team that secured the most points during the season. Because of that, the New York City Football Club are the only team in the quartet that can't host the final since they have the lowest amount of points earned during the regular season of the remaining teams with 55. So just to give you a little snippet of that, even the Philadelphia Union is doing really, really good with soccer. So Philadelphia, we love you. Philadelphia sports teams, we love you. And we just can't wait to see how you always come out on top when you are the underdog.
Yeah, but Stacey, real quick, the backstory there, the Union are going back up against the Red Bulls. And I don't know, for those of you who don't follow MLS, last year the Union were in a similar situation where they hosted the Red Bulls, but half the Union team got COVID. So they were down a lot of their major superstars. Again, you got to play the game. They lost 1-0, and New York went on to win the whole thing. So this is almost like a revenge game. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. Again, I think the Union as a club looked at it as that kind of got away from them. If it wasn't for COVID, they probably would have been a little bit more competitive or made a run. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out on Sunday.
All right. Thank you. We're going to go right into, since you said COVID, let's go right into the TRIPLEDEMIC. I'll start with Cousin Todd. Cousin Todd, President Biden today received his booster shot, in which he urged all Americans to get boosted and or vaccinated for COVID and the flu. TRIPLEDEMIC is RSV, the flu, and COVID. How do you think that's going to hold up when the majority of Americans are not vaccinated, or enough Americans? And I'm not going to say majority. Enough Americans aren't vaccinated for us to have reached that 75% threshold.
Right. It's going to be difficult because even when this was an actual pandemic, people were hesitant. And now that people are used to it, there's not going to be a lot of people getting this booster. Now, we are getting our booster, I think, Friday. So, Stacey, you better write that down for Friday. Because we have elderly people in our family and people with autoimmune diseases. So we have to take care of them and take care of each other, which I would hope the rest of Americans would think not only for themselves, but for others. I don't know what this winter is going to be. November is going to tell the story through the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. But I'm hoping enough people will smarten up and go ahead and get a booster. Now, I remember Keith got his vaccine, he and his wife, under some false pretenses. But as long as they got it, I was satisfied. Not for others, but for themselves. They're older. I believe Keith has some side health issues. And it's just better safe than sorry. So I'm hoping this November doesn't wreak havoc like it did last year. But I'm hearing that this strain isn't as deadly as the other two strains.
Well, When you say this strain, Cousin Todd, I think you are referring to the Omicron strain of COVID.
Right.
But if you look at this screen that I'm presenting, this is the NewYorkTimes.com article. And it says, I'm trying to see who was written by. It doesn't say it on here. I'll just keep going. You can see that's New York Times. Tripledemic is a flu and other infections return as COVID cases rise. Flu cases are higher than usual for this time of the year and are expected to soar in the coming weeks. The third virus, RSV, is straining pediatric hospitals in some states. Specifically, they were referring to Chicago. As you see, this is New York Times by Apoorva Mandaveli, October 23rd, written 2022. With few to no restrictions in place and travel and socializing back in full swing, an expected winter rise in COVID cases appears poised to collide with a resurgent influenza season, causing a twindemic or even a tripledemic with a third pathogen, respiratory syncytial virus, in the mix. Stephen, this is a real public health concern. So this being so, wouldn't it be prudent for people to be vaccinated?
Absolutely not. No one should get the vaccination. And
now, is that the flu shot or the COVID shot?
The COVID shot. No one should get the COVID shot. And if you want to get the COVID shot, get it. I don't care. Whatever. It's your health that you're compromising, in my opinion. If you want to get a flu shot, get a flu shot. In my opinion, it's unnecessary. We have natural immunity if you take care of yourself.
Did your dad get the flu shot?
I've never taken the flu shot. I'll never take the flu shot. I don't want the flu shot. And most people do not want the booster, but the booster price has gone up like 95%. And
so Stephen, what are you basing this on?
Millions of more of them just to placate the pharmacies.
So Stephen, wait a minute. I don't know what you're basing this on. Looking at this article, and I think I'm sharing the screen, correct?
Mm-hmm. I see it.
It says cases of flu have begun to tick up earlier than usual and are expected to soar over the coming weeks.
Because this is
children, right? Children, but they say it's ticked up earlier. It's ticked up earlier than usual.
Okay.
And it says children infected with RSV, which has similar symptoms to flu and COVID, rhinoviruses, and enteroviruses, are already straining pediatric hospitals in several states. So when you have hospitals being strained and unable to take care of patients, how can you say don't get a vaccine?
I don't believe the information. I don't believe they are strained. I think
why? Okay, wait. Why don't you believe the information?
Because the information we've gotten for 2 years about COVID, most of it's been garbage, and it's going to be proven. It's going to be proven that it was all garbage, and it was.
When is it going to be proven?
And it was all political. This is
when
garbage.
Is it going to
most
be
people
proven?
know by now. That's why most people will not get the booster. They're smarter than this. There are people dying because they got these shots and these boosters. There's people dying. And
okay, let's move on, because when he starts saying that, you have to mute him, because you can't have the audience thinking that a COVID shot kills people. We can't have
COVID
that.
shot kills people. Yes. And all the facts
you're not basing that on. You're not basing that on any.
From 18 to 34
evidence.
Males, 18 to 34. There are
Stephen, you're not basing that on any evidence.
Issues and heart-related deaths have gone up 84% because they had the COVID shot. All of that's coming out. All of that's going to come out. You're going to see.
When is it coming out, Stephen?
I owe you an apology.
When is that coming out, Stephen?
I would not recommend anybody.
When is that coming out?
Shots.
All right.
Let me say this. Nicki Minaj came out and said, this sounds like Stephen. Her girlfriend's cousin had her boyfriend had gotten the shot, and then he had got a girl pregnant, and then
that was
she wanted to get pregnant too, and then but he couldn't get her, and so he couldn't get her pregnant, so the shot made him impotent.
Todd, these shots are messing people's bodies up,
and
they're not good for you. These shots are messing up women's periods, and they're messing up men. They're messing up everything. You should not get these shots. They're not good for you. I promise you. I haven't
Where
lied
did
to you
you
once
get
on this
this
show.
information, Stephen? The dark web?
Nobody
or
should get
from
these
Keith?
shots. Nobody
Well,
should get these
Keith got the
shots.
shot.
The
Your
government who
friend
has
Keith
forced these
got the
shots on you
shot.
do not care about you.
Keith got the shot. He's not dead. He got it for
I'm not
his
saying
wife.
Keith is going to be
He
dead.
doesn't want to
This
kill
is
his wife
affecting-
and marry
it's
you.
affecting people in a very negative way. Getting these shots are not better than what they're trying to prevent. We have natural immunity, Todd. We don't need these shots.
Why did Keith get the shot if he's got such natural
Because he
immunity?
felt like he was
and his
being
wife?
forced to get the shot. Keith felt like he was forced.
What about his wife? Why did his wife get the shot? She was forced to?
I can't answer for anybody but me, but I'll do my best. Maybe because she was being
excuse
a good
me.
wife,
And
excuse me. Keith had to, she felt like she had to. Maybe she's being a good wife.
Okay, excuse me.
She wouldn't kill
Aguna. I have to ask you this question. Looking at this article from the New York Times, it says you've got most cases of COVID, flu, and RSV are likely to be mild, but together they may sicken millions of Americans in swamp hospitals, public health experts warned. You've got this waning COVID immunity coinciding with the impact of the flu coming along here and RSV. Andrew Reed, an evolutionary microbiologist at Penn State University, said, we're in uncharted territory. So anyone knows if you're in uncharted territory, Aguna, what do people do?
Well, here's the thing. Because this whole issue has been politicized, and you just heard a little bit of it on this show, it's up to people to use their judgment. And unlike Stephen, I'm not going to tell people what to do, right? You use your own judgment. I know what I would do.
You told me to get a shot. You told me to get shots.
Why? I didn't say a word during your whole diatribe, banter. And look, you see what happens. You see what happens. Stop being a bully, Stephen. No bullying on the show.
Tell the truth.
All right. So here's the thing. If you choose, shut up, Stephen. Can you shut up? I just listened to this. Mute him, Stacey. Mute him. At the end of the day, use your judgment. Don't listen to any of these yahoos on this show. Use your own judgment for what's best for you and your family. See, stay out of it. Government, stay out of it. They gave you your right to go and use it, right? Now that we have vaccines, you're having a perfect storm of flu season, this respiratory disease, and COVID. But because we have developed some immunity, we have people vaccinated, it is milder impacting to society. But at the same time, there are people that are going to be impacted negatively if you don't get it and you spread it and things like that. And so, I mean, it is insulting when you come on the show and you know people who've died from these things, and then people want to act and pretend as if they know what's best for you and what's best for your family and your situation. Leave it up to your own judgment. Thank God we're in America. We have our own freedom to do these things. However, I would caution and say that if you impact somebody else, that's on you. So I do what's best for my family. Nobody can tell me what to do. And so I use my own judgment in order to make these decisions. God bless America.
They forced people to get shots. They fired people if they didn't get shots.
Shut
they
up,
fired
Stephen.
people
No
from the
one's listening to
military.
Look, we're not scared. Shut up. Let people make their own decisions. Let people make their own decisions.
Shots that are unhealthy.
Why are you afraid to let people make their own decisions? Can we make our own decisions? Okay, then leave us alone. We're not scared. We're in America. We're not scared. We're not scared. You can't scare us, Stephen. You can't scare us, Stephen. We're not afraid. We don't live in fear. As long as I walk with the Lord, tell him, Keith. Tell him, Keith. As long as I walk with the Lord, I will not be afraid, because I walk with the Lord. You cannot scare me, Stephen. God will smite you.
What were you going to say, Keith?
God will smite you, Stephen. Shut up.
I just want to say, hey,
shut up, Stephen.
Shut up, liar.
Hey, Stephen, it's good to hear Aguna say he walks with the Lord. So I'm going to say that in agreement with Aguna on this one, I say, if you walk with the Lord, you don't have to be afraid. And then also Stephen has a point that there are people that have had bad reactions and some people died, but I don't put myself in that category. I am by his stripes, I was healed. I walk with the Lord, so I am strong. I'm strong and very courageous. and the Lord is with
And
me.
use your
So I don't
own
have to worry. My
judgment.
wife and I got a
Don't
shot.
listen to
We got two
Stephen.
shots.
Use your own judgment.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
And all this scare tactics. Are
The only
you
problem I
scared?
would say,
Every
the only
Hey.
would say, the only problem I would
people
say
were
is
not
that the
allowed
left,
to use their own judgment.
yeah,
the left.
Stephen, shut up. I know it's Halloween. Why do you come?
Okay, excuse me.
I,
You guys have to stop. Please stop.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I-
Go ahead, Keith, and finish because I got to move on.
Yeah, let me finish. Okay, well, I'll finish up by saying I agree with Stephen that, the people, they would not allow us to make our decisions ourselves. They did not let us make our own choices. They were forcing us to get it or lose our job. Many people lost their jobs for it because they didn't get vaccinated.
That's not forcing. You have the right to go and find another job. You can find another job. You can find another job. It's a right to work, and it's a right to work state in Virginia, at least. You can go find another job if you want to. We're at record low unemployment. Stop making excuses. You're making excuses.
So I got to
Why
move
don't you
on.
pull yourself up by your own
Shut up,
bootstrap?
Stephen. We're not scared. I know it's Halloween, but we're not scared.
Shut up, liar.
Excuse me. Nas, I know you want to get in on this, Nas. Go ahead and get in on this.
Liar.
You're a liar.
That doesn't hurt me.
Okay,
Look, you can call me names, Stephen, but I'm not scared.
The people who don't know, I mean, at this point, they're choosing not to know. They're still saying the same stuff they said when all of this started, despite, all of the calamities that we've seen and the people have lost. So, I mean, I'm not trying to convince Stephen of anything. So,
Okay.
that's what it is.
All right. Let's move.
Let a moron be a moron. A moron will be a moron.
Supreme Court Justice Thomas temporarily blocked Senator Graham election case testimony. What's so unusual? Let me present this on the screen. I think what's so unusual about this, Keith, is I've never seen a Supreme Court justice step out of, his chambers or step out of Supreme Court to temporarily block testimony from a senator somewhere else. If Keith, his wife, the Supreme Court Justice Thomas's wife, hadn't talked to him about the election for Donald Trump. How do you explain that, Keith?
He's on mute.
He muted himself.
He's being censored.
Is protect his wife. I mean, he's protecting his
wife.
But
he said, remember, his wife said she never spoke to him about anything about this.
All right. Well, I don't know. That's, I don't know about that. I don't know what's any. All I can say is that he's trying to protect his wife. So.
Okay, Cousin Todd.
Doing what a man.
Yeah, he is trying to protect her, which you can understand why, because she's in deep crap about this thing where she's calling the White House and she's perpetuating this lie about the election being stolen. And he should have recused himself. Of course, he did not, because he's just as crooked as she is. And it's funny how he voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, and he said next they should look into gay marriage. And if he wants to, okay, but also they should look into marriage between blacks and whites. Race mixing was a crime. I think we ought to go back to that.
How can you equate that with
ma'am? They should revisit all of it. Blacks have no business intermixing with whites.
You're
according
a racist.
To the Klan.
That is a racist statement.
That's according to the founding fathers.
That's a
you
racist.
Can't race mix, and so they should look into that and revoke
so many black women
and revoke all marriages that were race mixed.
That is biggest racist statement. Man, you sound like those guys back in the South.
Oh wow!
Boy.
So let's talk about this. If you see the screen that I'm sharing, this is by Reuters' Andrew Chung, written October 24th, 2022, 10:52 p.m. Thomas put the case on hold. I'm trying to get down to it. Sorry. Pending further action either from the justice or the full Supreme Court on a request by Graham, a Republican from South Carolina and Trump ally, to halt the order for testimony. You know, I'm wondering, Stephen, if this is democracy. I don't know democracy that happens where someone cherry picks justice and steps and uses the highest court in the land to do this. Is this the beginning of the end of democracy, Stephen?
No, it's not the end of democracy. That's what your people tell you. What it is, it's constitutional.
Who's her people? Who's her people?
Thomas.
Who is her people?
Thomas, I guess he's just listening to MSNBC. I don't know. But Justice Thomas is following the Constitution. And right now what they're doing is unconstitutional. That's why he stepped in, because he's a constitutionalist. The Constitution is what separates this country from every other country. And maybe if y'all would embrace it a little more, maybe we wouldn't argue about stupid stuff like this. Maybe if you understood the Constitution a little more, we wouldn't argue about it.
Explain it to us. What part of it? What protection under the Constitution, Stephen? What protection under the Constitution is he making this? Again, he's just going to keep talking. He's not going to answer the question.
You do not have a brain.
What part of the Constitution is the grounds of temporary stay?
I didn't give out brains.
Okay, Stephen,
Stephen is just going on and on. He doesn't explain himself. He just uses the word Constitution as if he knows what it's in it. Look, so here's the thing, and I don't want to overblow this. Again, they're going to keep.
I don't remember a Supreme Court justice ever stepping out of or away from the entity of the Supreme Court to pick out one specific case to work on. Is there precedence for that, Aguna?
No, I mean, again, now, first thing, it's only temporary. So they got until the end of this week to decide whether or not the Supreme Court is going to even take up this whole nonsense. At the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, any moron, even the ones on this show, should ask themselves, what does Lindsey Graham have to hide? If he's innocent and he's done nothing wrong, go ahead and testify and be done with it. Why do you have to go to a Supreme Court and all get on this high horse and all this other talk about? Yeah, of course it's an attack on democracy. At the end of the day, he's trying to hide from the American people, trying to hide the truth. If he did nothing wrong, nothing to worry about. He's like, I'm go on there and plead the fifth or something. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to use these back office, backdoor things in order to save yourself. And Clarence Thomas, I mean, he overstepped, but at the same time, you know, he granted a temporary stay on it. It wasn't that, you know, he blocked it completely. But you have to ask yourself, if you have any sense in your head, which a lot of people on this show do not, what does he have to hide?
Okay, Nas.
No, I mean, this will be simple. This will be the first Negro wake-up call of Mr. Clarence's life, where he realizes when he steps out front and says, we are deciding to do this action, he's going to turn around and see that there's nobody standing with him. They're going to leave Clarence on an island. Him and his wife are in big trouble, and this is not going to play out in his favor. And this was just an overreach, just a way to try to slow the flow that's coming for him. But he's going to find out real quickly that his conservative brethren won't stick by him when things get tough. So good luck, Clarence.
Tom. And wait, why did Trump?
What about Todd's racist remark?
What about that's not racist? That's the white handbook. No race mixing, and you know better than that. Clarence Thomas should be thrown in jail for doing that.
Now, Todd, people have the right to love whoever they choose.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. There will be no race mixing in America.
Overturn Loving versus Virginia and say that it was unconstitutional, that word that Stephen likes to use but has no idea about the utility of it or what precedent he's citing. He just throws out Constitution and hope that that's the right answer.
Sounds good.
Gets up there and you say, okay, well, how was the book? And he tells you about the cover And he tells you about the last few words of the book because he didn't read it. So that's what you're hearing right now.
Pretty much.
In a sarcastic way, was trying to bring up the ridiculousness of Clarence talking about overturning, these historic changes to the country where
same-sex marriage and
where you didn't decide that race should be a factor in somebody being married. The idea of same-sex marriage, where you're deciding that, okay, if people do fall in love and they choose to marry, that's their own business. It shouldn't be the government trying to step in as an entity. So ultimately, Todd just showed y'all, made y'all show yourselves just by making a simple comment.
How could that be?
My brother's,
but then
my dad's brother, Clarence. Yeah, he in trouble.
Nah, I don't understand. How could a white woman?
You don't understand. Exactly.
No,
so now that. Okay, well, we can't go into him explaining that, but I want to talk about because Todd.
Wait a minute. No. You would ask us to explain it, Stephen and me. So I want to hear why Nas thinks that I can't marry a white woman if I want to, and yet I could marry a man.
You can't marry.
So for some reason, you have a hard time keeping up. What I said was, until Loving versus Virginia, that was the law of the land. That's the Constitution you constantly refer to. There had to be a change in the law in order for that to be possible. So you could have marriage of interracial couples. That was the point.
We know this. We're aware of this.
Oh, okay.
No,
we saw the movie. We saw the movie.
Like you knew it.
So let me move on. So Todd is bringing up. We're talking about an interesting mixture of race and racism in America and the law. So Todd, this will lead us right into the conversation that you were talking to me about earlier this week. Did you want to discuss that at the University of Pennsylvania and the University of Pennsylvania Hospital or the lab?
Okay. University of Penn is a well-known hospital in Philadelphia, and they were doing experiments on people in jail without telling them. And that was going on for, I think, about 50 years. And no one was the wiser. And so how does a hospital get away with that? But they knew that they could do that because they're nothing but jailbird niggers, in their opinion. So they can get away with it. And nothing is done about it. It is so typical. That's just typical America.
And okay, and then I want to go to Florida.
Wait, before you go to Florida, I just wanted to talk about the syphilis, where the government was giving people syphilis.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? Well, This is no different. That case just got world attention, and this one didn't.
Okay. Also, voters in 5 states have the chance to wipe slavery and indentured servitude off of the books. Let me share that screen with you and talk about what that's about.
Mm-hmm. That was a Tuskegee experiment.
No.
He said, we know. He got you, Todd. So voters in 5 states have the chance to wipe slavery and indentured servitude off the books, written by Shauna Mizell, published Sunday, October 23rd, 9:45 a.m. at CNN.com. What she's referring to is when slavery was outlawed in the U.S. in 1865. Do you see the screen?
Yes, but we can't read it, but go on.
The 13th Amendment included one exception, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude.
Wait a minute. Keith, is that your shoe?
That's a good looking shoe right there.
Except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted.
Wait a minute.
Shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. This is what the 13th Amendment included. And Keith, you should know this. The penalty has remained on the books in more than a dozen states, even though it hasn't been enforced since the Civil War. But next month, November, voters in Alabama, Louisiana, Vermont, Oregon, and Tennessee will be given the opportunity to exercise the punishment from their states' constitutions once and for all, according to a CNN review of pending ballot initiatives. You said that's a lie, Nas. Why are you saying that's a lie?
Well, I would cite Angola, prison in Louisiana, where people do have to actually work in the fields, next to a horse, what do you call it? A correction officer on a horse next to him with the threat of the whip. And they are working there in Angola prison. And again, when we're talking about these things, always remember, they lie by elision, what they leave out. So you can say, in this prison, if you work for 4 cents an hour creating garments for Victoria's Secrets and many of these other companies that use prison labor and exploit them in order to make money, you can't call that slavery, but you'll call it the closest thing next to it. Because if you refuse to work there, if enough prisoners refuse to work there, then they get their benefits taken away. And those benefits could be as small as going outside for an hour, or the ability to buy stuff from commissary, or, any other small privilege that they've been able to, keep as a prisoner. They're able to take those things away and force them to work in these places in order to do what? Pay for your toothbrush, your toothpaste, your shower slippers, towels, snack, everything you would actually need in a prison. So,
how do you know so much about prison? Where are you calling us from?
When you look at the actual conditions, you know what it is.
Okay.
Can you imagine, because you have intelligence and you research and study, he's trying to say you're in jail as we speak.
I think he's in prison.
Wow.
That's why he can't put his face up here. They'll let him talk on the phone, but they won't let him put his face up.
I mean, Stephen, why are you going to attack Nas? Are you intimidated by Nas that much? Does Nas intimidate you that much?
Really bad.
And then
he resorts to name calling and accusations just because he's more intelligent than you.
Then Cousin Todd brought this to my attention. I already knew, but he did bring it to my attention. A Florida man's voter fraud charges were dismissed in a blow to Governor DeSantis. So a Miami state judge, if you can see the screen I'm sharing, a Miami state judge threw out the case against Robert Lee Wood, ruling that the statewide prosecutor who is overseeing all 20 cases had no jurisdiction because the alleged crime did not occur in at least 2 judicial circuits. So 1 of 20 people were arrested for voting illegally as part of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Let's add some details to that.
Wait. Well, let me finish. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' effort to crack down on voter fraud and had charges dismissed on Friday. Go ahead, Nas.
Okay, so the idea that it's being coined voter fraud, that's already a problem. So in Florida, last election, they had a referendum on felons being able to vote. Felons got their voting rights restored. Now, if you've been convicted of a felony in Florida, you can't vote. However, they had a provision in there where you had to pay off all your fines and fees owed to the state. So if you were told you were good to go as far as a voter, but you also still owed some money, then your vote would be considered illegally voting. And that's how you get the charge of voter fraud. But if somebody on the news just reads voter fraud, it plays into the Trumpian big lie where you're acting like there was this huge case of voter fraud in the state. And what we found out in Florida was the few people who were picked up and arrested, we all saw the video, for this charge, there were people that lived in a certain district that wasn't voting for DeSantis typically. And also, again, we go back to the main point. It's not fraud if I was told I could go vote, except, you guys didn't do the cross your T's and dot your I's and find out that there was some fees owed, and therefore his rights weren't restored yet. So, this is an ugly story, but this is DeSantis, again, politicizing things that affect people's lives. So just for a political photo op of them arresting somebody where they can get the news media to flash up and say voter fraud, they get to, you see what I'm saying? They get to make hay from it. And ultimately, you got a voter fraud task force that is another waste of taxpayer money, because in Florida, for the most part, eligible voters don't even vote. Like, you don't have a problem with fraud. You got a problem with participation. They don't give a damn.
So let me ask you, Stephen. What I did was to bring all of these subjects to the forefront for us to discuss. You've got the racism, wiping away indentured slavery in certain states. You've got testing of people of color, unbeknownst to them, for diseases. You've got arresting people for voting. This is based on their color. All this in an attempt to lower or how shall I say, not do
keep
right
people
by
away from the polls.
Keeping people away from the polls. This seems like this is a step for America in the wrong direction, Stephen. This seems like this is a step for America and keeping all Americans from voting. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't think you believe that, Stacey. I don't think you believe it. I just think you're putting it out there because I guess MSNBC or CNN or somebody is
saying
pushing
that?
You towards this direction. But there's no racism. You show your ID, you go and you vote. The thing we had,
that's what the people did. They voted, then they went to jail.
Why did they go to jail?
Showed their ID and voted.
If they do something wrong, if they did something wrong, people go to jail. Sometimes people go to jail and they shouldn't go to jail. But to say this is a racist country that doesn't let black people vote is a lie. Everybody votes. Everybody's cool. What you're trying to do is skew things, and it's wrong. Everybody has an equal shot in this country. But if you try to say otherwise, I know it's a lie because by the proof.
All right. Let me same question to Keith. I'm trying to understand. Wait, same question, Stephen.
Or whatever.
He's going to keep talking. He's going to keep saying that nonsense.
Same question to you. How do you explain, Keith? How do you explain all of this in terms of targeting a group of people and trying to keep them from voting and trying to control? How is that democracy?
First of all, we have to verify. Nobody can verify what Nas said. I mean, he just said what he said. But then I would tell you one thing: he's still making a speculative argument. He's making it based on his opinion. And so I would say that
that's what Stephen does. That's what Stephen does.
I've been right every time. You've been wrong.
Unprepared, and then
I would say the people that he mentioned were convicted of crimes. These were people that were felons or they had committed crimes. I guess they had been in, he's talking about prison people. He's not talking about just average citizens, black
Their
citizens.
rights were restored.
So, they were restored, but then you're not talking about just citizens like you and me. He's not talking about.
Were they born in America?
He's not talking about me. He's not talking about people like me, because people like me, I go and vote all the time. My wife votes. I vote. Aguna votes. Todd votes. Stacey votes.
It's all garbage.
We're all black and we vote. Okay, so
can I mail in my vote? Can I mail it in without you saying it's fraud?
And if there is,
can I mail it in within 30 days?
I guarantee you it's because it's a Democrat policy. There's no Republicans doing this.
Come on. You just lost your argument right there. You just lost your argument and credibility. The little that you had.
All I know is that I can vote.
Is Aguna going to go or me?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, Aguna, do you want to go or do you want to yield to Todd?
I'll just say this. This is why I want our viewers to listen look very carefully at what's going on here and how one argument is just purely emotional banter and the other is factual, walking down the actual milestones, actually trying to engage in an intelligent conversation, versus the other argument of, well, I vote. No, nobody. The racism doesn't exist. Like you haven't been. You had your head stuck under a rock for the last 250 years in this country or something like that. It's ridiculous. But I think it's very entertaining, by the way, but you see when some people talk, the dumber you get. So I'll just leave it at that. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, cousin Todd.
Okay.
Nobody said racism doesn't exist.
Okay.
See how you twisted
And
it?
you yielded your time, Keith. We don't want to hear it. Okay, it's the Democrats' fault. Todd, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Democrats
listen.
and Todd.
See?
All right.
Or,
Now listen.
or don't say Dr. Fauci, because then Stephen's going to go crazy.
Yeah.
Todd,
Go ahead, Todd.
These people's voting rights were restored.
You're a racist.
So why should they not be able to vote? They didn't tell them, oh, you have to pay off everything you owe before you can vote, or they would not have voted. And so these people were being arrested, not knowing why they were being arrested. Even the cops arresting them didn't know why they were being arrested. So that was a ploy to make Black people scared to vote. I just heard today there was a robocall. No, that was last night on Rachel Maddow, and saying how if you vote by mail, the government will get your information, and if you have any warrants out, or if you have any unpaid tickets, or if the police are going to come after you. And so they're prosecuting that person now, because that was a lie. That was to scare you into staying home and not voting. So why is it
by mail? What are you talking about?
Why is it that
you're going to get arrested?
That's voter fraud, apparently,
so,
Keith. And you do that in Pennsylvania, that's voter fraud, according to you.
And
Not
so,
watch what happens when we win.
That's what the law says. That's what
so
the
this
Democrats
is
say.
the point. All of these efforts to prevent people from voting, why? And then when you make these excuses, Todd can vote, Stephen can vote, Keith can vote. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the least of these. We're talking about these people who have done their time and should be able to vote. Why are they being blocked? So obviously, that's to keep Black people in particular from the polls, just like they used to do with poll tax and counting the marbles in a jar, and if you own property and that kind of a thing. So it's just a disgrace that America is still at that place. Also, the thing about University of Penn doing experiments on these inmates. America is not changing. They just do these things quietly now. You remember when they used to take the children out to picnics to see a Black be hung? They stopped doing that now, at least the picnic part, but they hang you quietly. It's disgraceful. This is America.
Okay, Todd had his 15 seconds. All right. Let's move on. Rishi Sunak is the new Prime Minister and leader of the Conservative Party of Great Britain. Let me share the screen. He had audience with King Charles III today, where King Charles told him to go ahead and start the government. But President Macron and Zelensky from Ukraine, as well as Biden, spoke with Sunak and had a great call and a congratulatory call.
Yeah.
Sunak
their economy
richer.
is not doing well in England, and their economy is not doing well. Inflation is high, just like here and all around the world.
I can't do anything about it.
But
Exactly.
Sunak is richer, is wealthier. He and his wife are wealthier than the Queen of England was, which is interesting. If you look at this article by thehill.com, I just want to read it. Sorry, I have to get it up.
That's okay. While you're doing that, the pandemic has really jacked up most countries. And so they had to put out a lot of money. And so now we're getting restarted. So it's going to take a little while. So when you hear these people talking about the economy and inflation, and we're going to vote Republican because gas prices are high, if you think about it, gas prices were high in the 60s, then they went down. Then gas prices were high in the 70s. Remember, Keith? And then gas prices went down. Then when Ronald Reagan was president, gas prices went up and then gas prices went down. But what will your children say to you when you voted for a party who's taken away women's rights? Oh, well, gas prices were high then.
Women's rights.
All right, so let me say this,
No
and then
party,
we can get into
no
that.
one party can fix it.
We can get in that gas price because Keith has a question for Aguna about that. But if you look at this article, The Hill,
Bring it.
Written by Brett Samuels on October 25th, 2022 at 8:16 p.m., Biden speaks with British Prime Minister Sunak about Ukraine Good Friday Agreement in first call. He says Biden spoke with Sunak hours after he officially took over as Prime Minister, becoming the third person this year to hold that position in the United Kingdom. Aguna, you want to talk about how the Britons can't seem to get it together in terms of having one person after Brexit?
Yeah, because with the Brexit deal and how it impacted the EU, I mean, there's a lot of Britain is not like the United States, in which you have a lot of manufacturing jobs, a lot of natural resources, and you have just a large middle class. Inflation's very high there. They've been very conservative. They moved to being very conservative because of the EU. And really, there's not a lot you can do once you start raising interest rates in order to stave off inflation. If you don't have a lot of resources or a lot of, you have everything that Britain has to get is coming from someplace else almost. You have very limited ability to really, get some homegrown manufacturing, things like that going. So it's hard. It's hard.
And that's because they're an island. That's because they're basically a country that's surrounded by water. Go ahead.
Right. And again, this is inflation is not just one country, two countries having it. I mean, it's a global. The whole globe is being impacted. The U.S. actually is being impacted less than some other countries around the world. And a lot of it has to do with supply chain issues because of the pandemic, and because, as a result of the pandemic, things are getting back online and people are traveling more, spending more. Demand has gone up because for 2 years, there was no demand. So it's going to be one of the things. Todd is correct in that sense. But if you think about it, if there's a party in the United States saying, okay, this party is screwing up the economy, but you don't have any solutions on how you're going to fix it. You really have to ask yourself, again, Halloween is all about scare tactics. No solution.
So let me go back to, I want to talk about Keith, and Keith isn't here for some reason right now to discuss what he wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah,
looking for Hunter Biden's laptop.
I didn't know you were going right there.
Pay attention to that.
He's looking for Hunter Biden's laptop.
Remember,
I was trying to retrieve something to get the.
You want to talk to Aguna about. You said that President Biden is releasing reserves of oil like he's using his campaign credit card, according to that article you sent. What is it you want to ask Aguna?
Well,
I guess I want to ask because you see, I am, I just want to understand something.
We can't see you, Keith.
We can't see.
We can't see you, Keith. Did you know we can't see you?
But you can hear me, right? Because I want to read.
We can hear you.
I'm reading. All right, so I'm ready. Just like Nas. You can't see him, but you can hear him. So I want to read something because
Nas, you can interject anytime you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that Biden. It says here that Biden administration has instituted a regulatory crackdown. Now, Aguna is a free market guy. That's what he says. But here's what it says in the article. And I mean, if the article is wrong, then it's okay. You can say so.
Where's this article from?
Well, it's not me saying it, Aguna.
What's the article from?
It's from Jack. This is Jack McVoy, Energy and Environment Reporter. Okay, so this is from
what outlet is it on?
Daily Caller. And it's this Energy and Environment.
Okay, there's the dark web.
All right, let's hear this one.
All right,
Baby Newsmax.
I know you're gonna reject it because
no. Go ahead. Let's have a debate. But I'm gonna listen to you. and then I'll ask questions. Go ahead.
According to the reporter, he says that Biden administration has instituted a regulatory crackdown on producers and discouraged investment in the industry while blaming oil and gas companies for the resulting shortages and price hikes. So how does that reflect a free market when you are regulating and cracking down on the producers? You go the people who produce.
Well, it depends. So these producers again, he's cherry picking, but I got him, Nas. This is cherry picking at its best.
Cherry picking.
Yeah. So you heard the word regulation, right? The word regulation scares you, right? Because they're regulating this industry, right? An industry that, by the way, is going away. So my question is, what is he really regulating? Is he regulating the licensing of it? Is he not or is he regulating the sales of it? What is he actually regulating when you say that? Because again, you guys on this show have suggested regulation. You guys have suggested regulation because you guys want energy independence. And if you want energy independence, that means you want to force oil companies to sell domestically. And it's a global economy. Again, you can't, the only way you're going to force American oil companies to sell, let me finish. You're allowing them, if you regulate them and force them to sell domestically, is the only way by your definition, should become energy independent. I actually applaud the Biden administration's investment in alternative energy because that's the real energy independence. It's not drilling more because studies have shown you can't drill your way to energy independence. You need to find alternative sources of energy. And there's a lot of alternative sources of energy in this country. I mean, as a consumer, again, when I say energy independence, I'm not talking as a like Stephen and Keith here as a populist fascist. I'm talking about as a consumer. I want if I want to be energy independent, I want to be able to buy my Tesla. I want to be able to power my house from solar. That's energy independence. This whole idea that somehow the Democrats are going to regulate my ability or my right to be energy independent as a consumer is ridiculous. There's so many different ways. I only drive one car right now. I don't drive two cars. I don't need to have a bunch of gas guzzlers. That's my way as a consumer choice to be energy independent. So the Biden administration is saying, okay, we're going to regulate the oil industry because we're going to take money and invest it in like Dubai, like all the Arab countries that are drilling because they don't get high off their own supply. They sell it to fools like you guys versus using it internally. That's why they're making their money because they're not using it domestically. They're exporting it. And the U.S. And the U.S. is doing the same thing. A lot of the net exports that the U.S. has done was because Obama deregulated and said, okay, now you can sell it on the global market. So we were trending to have higher net exports because, again, you can't force domestic oil companies to sell domestically if you don't regulate them. I don't know how else they're not going to do it out of the kindness of their heart. Oil companies want to make money.
We're not saying that, Aguna. We're not saying, they sell domestically. We want to flood the entire world with our oil.
Who is
Nobody's
we?
saying
Who is
domestic.
we?
That's an
Who is we?
argument that you just made up.
No. Okay. Stephen, what do oil companies do? They want to make money. They don't want to flood the market. The oil companies don't want to flood the market. They want to set the price. Your argument is ignorant because you don't understand how that works. They want to make more money. Why would they flood the market?
Okay.
Why would they flood the market if they want to make money?
In a free market, they should be able to make all the money they want.
You're not answering the question. They set the price, Keith. They set the price.
Why are you going to mute me and not that blabber mouth?
Don't get angry. Don't get angry.
Why are you going to mute
Don't get
me?
angry.
I am getting angry when
don't get angry. Get educated.
I do get angry.
You're getting red again. I'm going to screenshot you. Let me screenshot this.
Mute his mic. Somebody put a gag in his mouth.
Look, are you going to make a point or you just going to complain? Are you going to yell or are you just going to complain? No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
The world is going to suffer because of stupid people like you who support this.
He has no argument. Stephen, you don't have an argument.
Because we're not allowed to do what we did before under Donald Trump.
which
The
What are you
regulations are
talking
killing
about?
the industry.
Okay, you can't hear Nas. Excuse me.
If you want an electric
Yeah.
car, buy
Mute
50
Steven.
electric cars. We don't make
Steven,
electric
wait, let's
cars.
Steven finish.
Steven,
Steven
you're
finish.
nonsense. We don't want to hear that nonsense.
Steven,
You're done.
Steven,
You lost,
gotta
Steven.
make your Steven.
Steven,
You
you
have
lost.
You
to.
lost the
You
argument.
have to.
You lost
No.
the argument.
You have to
No,
bring it to a
Steven.
close.
I can't hear you,
can't keep
Steven.
going on and on.
You
You have to
lost
bring
the
it to a
argument.
close.
You didn't make
Okay.
an argument,
Go
Steven.
ahead.
You
Go
just
ahead,
yelled.
Nas.
You know what? Let me say this, Stacey, real quick. Joe
Wait,
Biden is taking
Nas.
us to
Wait,
Let
Nas.
Nas talk, Steven. Let Nas talk.
Shut
Let
up,
Nas
Laguna. You're
talk.
ignorant or you're
We done heard
complacent.
that.
You're ignorant.
Yeah, you're gonna call names.
Joe
Let Nas
Biden
talk
is
now.
selling our
You're gonna call
reserves
names. I
to
get it.
other
Okay, let Nas
countries.
talk.
You understand? To bring down
Let
the price
Nas
of
talk,
oil.
Steven.
Wait,
That's
Aguna, let him
stupid.
get this
So
out.
if we would have a glut of our own
We're-
oil, we could do that and bring the price down all over the world. Your argument is retarded.
No,
And
Steven.
wrong.
Stacy, can you mute him for a second? Because this is why
You're wrong, Aguna.
Yahoos like
You're
him
not
don't understand.
telling the truth.
Oil companies want to make money. They don't want to
They
flood
will
the
make
market.
money.
They want to set the price. Okay, they want to
They
set
don't
the
want it
price
to be as high as
because
you want
they
it to
make
be.
the
Joe
money
Biden wants it
regardless.
to
They're
be
going to make money
$10 a
regardless.
gallon. Joe Biden
Nobody
and the left
wants to
wants it
flood
be
the market.
$10 a
Go
gallon.
back and look at it. Trump
Well,
actually negotiated to reduce production in order to stabilize prices. They set the market.
That's a
They're not
totally
flooding
different
anything.
thing. What we need
Let
to
him
do
do
Okay,
it.
so let me get
the
Nas in
market
here.
now.
Again, you don't know
Saudi
how
Arabia
you don't know how
Aguna,
oil. You don't know
Wait,
how it
mute
works.
everybody.
Steven and Aguna.
Stacey,
You
mute
gotta stop.
everybody.
I
Steven doesn't
do,
know.
and then they unmute themselves.
Okay.
Steven doesn't know what he's talking about.
Mute
They just did
I'm
it.
being calm.
I
He doesn't
did,
want to
and then
even
they
listen to
undo
the
it.
argument. He's like,
Mute
he's just
everybody
bantering.
and
I
let
did,
Steven-
and they
I
undo
don't
it,
need
dumb
your
dumb.
argument. Your anti-American argument.
All right,
Okay,
go ahead,
Steven,
Nas.
I am a capitalist. Okay.
Nas's turn to talk. Hold it.
Hold on,
You're a useless idiot.
points, and I get out the way. I'll let y'all. I just hit these 2 points. First point where Steven says flood the market. Okay, it's not possible for us to flood the market. We don't have that type of oil. There's an organization called OPEC, which is the highest producing oil companies and countries. That's a slip from Freud. He would say something to me about that, me confusing country and company, saying something else. But anyway, those countries produce the most oil and they get it at the cheapest rate. Why? Because they have the most oil reserves, easiest to produce, and they sell the most. We could never outproduce them because we don't have that amount of oil. If we decided that we were going to flood the market and just started pumping crazy, you know what they would do? They would pump even more. And then that would drive the price down until our companies would be out of business because they can go way lower than we can because they have more reserves.
Dumb.
Pablo Escobar analogy.
$10.
Some of the
Let's do it.
suppliers the price. You see what I'm saying?
do it.
That's why that wouldn't work. Do you think
Why
in
not do
American history?
Why is
nobody
Joe
did
Biden
that?
putting out reserves? Why is Joe Biden putting out reserves to lower the price of gas?
What'd you say?
He's talking about the
Why
oil
Joe Biden
reserves.
is
It's
putting
not.
out our
It's more of a
reserves.
gesture. It's not really
All right.
putting a dent in
We're
gas
running out of
prices.
time. We're really out of time,
Why is he
and I
doing
want to
it,
go
dude?
over
You don't
this
have an argument.
shoot.
No,
I want to go over this
Steven, you're not going to
shooting.
listen anyway. You don't know. It's like talking to
You
a
heard.
don't
first
have an
grader.
argument.
You don't
Why is
know
Joe
anything
Biden
about gas
putting our
prices.
reserves, our strategic reserves, out in public? Why is he doing that? Give me an answer.
Man,
You don't have
listen to
one.
this guy. He's
Maybe
doing
that's-
it for
it's a-
he's doing it so
it's a bad
yahoos like
attempt
you.
to lower gas prices before the
All right,
election.
we're out of time. Steven,
You're
It
wrong.
Steven
doesn't
Money.
work, Steven. He's doing it as a
Steven.
gesture. It
As
doesn't
smart
work.
as you thought you
Steven,
were. I wish you
Steven,
were as smart as
I
you
got to
thought you
move
were.
on. There was a horrible
This is
school
a
shooting. There was a horrible school shooting in St. Louis, Missouri, where a former student went into a school and tried to shoot it up, but thank the Lord that the school had done drills. They knew what they were doing. They locked the students in the classrooms, and the police came right away. The school guards do not carry guns because they decided that's what's best for their community. And what they do is call the police, their local authorities who do carry guns legally, to come and address the shooter. There was no hesitation. There was no talking outside. There was no waiting for the police to come in. They got there and subdued. They got there in 8 minutes and subdued and got into a battle, gun battle with the shooter, ultimately killing them. Let's start with Keith.
Yeah.
You used to work in schools. Do you want to talk about how this shooter should not have been allowed to have this AR-15 with over 600 rounds of ammunition?
A recent
Well,
graduate.
I don't know if he should not be allowed. I mean, the point is that what I want to focus on is that, two people still got killed. He still killed two. He's killed a student and he killed a teacher, 61-year-old teacher and a student, 15-year-old or something like that. So he did kill two people. But I still hold, in my view, my belief, it is my personal belief, and it is also constitutional, Second Amendment, that if someone had been armed on campus, maybe those security officers, I know that's what they decided not to arm them, but perhaps if someone had been armed, they could have possibly stopped him before he even got, killed the people that he killed on the campus. Maybe that's possible. And as long as that possibility exists, I would say that the people need to be armed so they can be ready and
Amen.
prepared to protect themselves. And that is my view. That is a biblical worldview. It is the way
police
God
responded in 4 minutes.
That's fine.
8
That's
minutes.
fine.
It was 8
That's
minutes.
good.
It was 8
It's 4 minutes.
8.
I still
4
hold
It was
minutes.
not.
4
She just said it was 8
minutes. 4
4
minutes.
How many
Okay.
people can
Thank
die
you.
in 4 to 8 minutes?
Look,
How many
so,
people can
and
die?
they
I
also
also-
credited
excuse
locked
me.
doors. They credited locked doors
Yes, they
and
did.
the fact that they had a quick response to the reason
That's
why
right.
more people didn't get killed.
Yes. And I would like to say, as we talk about our schools post-pandemic, we have to talk about how studies are finding that, Keith, that students have fallen way behind academically because of the pandemic. How do we ever get our students back to the base or the foundation that they should be?
Go back to the principles of our founding. Go back to God. Once we
Wave
come
a
back
magic wand.
to the principles of our founding, we can heal this society. That's the only way. We're not going to do it politically. All this arguing, rhetoric that we do here on the show, all of that is fruitless without God, because God is the only one who can bring us back and back
Thank
to
you.
an society.
Thank you, Stephen. Same comment about, if you look at this article I'm sharing, CNN.com, 19-year-old gunman killed 2 people and wounded several others at his former high school. He left a note saying his struggles led to the perfect storm for a mass shooter. That St. Louis police said he graduated from the Center Visual and Performing Arts High School last year and returned Monday with an AR-15 style rifle, over 600 rounds of ammunition, and more than a dozen high-capacity magazines. Why would anyone need that if they were not in a full-fledged war with another country?
I mean, anybody can have that if they want. They can keep it in their closet. And then most 99.99% of the people who have guns and ammunition are not going to use them in that way. This is a sick person. And I've said for many, many years on this show, many years, that we need to fortify our schools. And I've delivered to schools a lot. And a lot of schools have become really fortified and have been done really well. And it didn't take that much for these schools to get like that. They ought to take the COVID money they got for some schools and just turn them into more of a fortress that's harder to get into. But I also truly believe if there's people there at the place that would wish to carry a concealed weapon or whatever, that they could have stopped it where people wouldn't have gotten hurt and a couple people wouldn't have got killed. And that's the best case scenario. You kill the sick son of a gun who wants to kill other people because he ain't right. I don't care if he has 50 rounds, 5 million rounds. If he's a crazy nut that wants to kill innocent people, he needs to be taken out directly. As soon as he pulls that gun up, as soon as he draws that gun on anybody, he needs to be hit right heel. Done. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah,
And I don't know why anybody would
would object to this because they just don't like guns, I guess.
Bystanders get killed.
Guns don't kill people.
Right.
Okay.
Catastrophe. It's not the problem-solving thing that you think it is. Other point, it's very interesting to hear conservatives talk about now how they want big government to come in and make the schools into fortresses. Really interesting where you guys want government and where you guys don't want government. So now you're for big government. And then we're still dealing with the aftermath.
You spend money on schools anyway.
What
Make them
happens
safe.
as opposed to saying, wait a minute, maybe we should look into some people not having access to weapons of war of this magnitude, because anybody having access to it can lead to more shootings like we're talking about.
And judge that.
They
don't use these weapons that we have here in war. It's not a weapon of war.
Drop the baseline to celebrate only 2 deaths. That's how badly we're doing on this issue. And of course, the answer regulations, a Brady Bill type maneuver nationally where you remove access to these things unless somebody is highly qualified and competent and has some type of way of proving that they should have access to it, as opposed to an 18-year-old who can order it online and then go take out all of his frustrations in life on his past classmates.
So let's also talk about how we get our United States American students back up to where they were, at least academically, because they've fallen so far behind because of the pandemic.
Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
That was from Oz.
Well, I mean, this is just going to be something that you read about years from now, where during that year, globally, students started to get behind, and it's going to take some time for them to get back to baseline. That's normal. That's a normal process. What happened during World War II? What happened during World War I or any of the influenza pandemic? Like, what happened? Like, yeah, you're going to be behind a little bit, but it just takes time to fix it. Like, there's no reason to keep printing up articles about, oh, the kids are behind. They wasn't doing too good in the first place. If you want to go and look at where we are globally, last year, this is after the pandemic, I know we were 53rd. So I don't know if we're this great educational story anyway. Hell, you hear Stephen and Keith on here. They went through American public school.
Gay, homosexual.
So, Aguna, St. Louis, you look at this article, I'm sharing it, and the investigators found, thank you, Naz, the investigators found a handwritten note in the car Harris drove to the school, and he said, I don't have any friends. I don't have any family. I've never had a girlfriend. I've never had a social life. I've been an isolated loner my entire life. How do we help these type of people so that they don't take it out on innocent bystanders, Aguna?
Yeah, well, that's a very complicated issue because, again, a lot of times the people want to say it's mental health driving these folks that are to do this. Let me just comment on this hardening of the schools. Like, I mean, it's a sad day in this country where the actual solution is to make schools more like prisons. And that's comforting for folks on this show. And to say that, I mean, I listen to law enforcement. I'm not an expert, but I'll listen to the experts. And they don't want armed teachers. They don't want everybody in the school armed in order to fight a symptom of a bigger problem, the fact that you got all these weapons out here. And again, you're celebrating that only 2 people were killed because there were locked doors and because there were certain protocols in place. It wasn't just a mass shooting. The gunman wasn't able to enter the school building and get into a classroom and those type of things. But unfortunately, 2 people were killed. And if you look at the statistics, again, of the 450 some odd active shooting cases last year, only 2 or 3 were able, or was somebody, a knight in shining armor or some armed vigilante able to neutralize the assailant. Everything else, the assailant has a tactical advantage, let alone if he had this type of weapon. You're not going to be able to do this cowboy rah-rah that we hear on this show and be able to take this person out. He's going to take you out 9 times out of 10. And that's what law enforcement are talking about. So they're like, hey, look, we want to be able to, law enforcement needs to be trained. They need to, when they arrive on scene, know who the bad guys are and eliminate them. The more guns you put in that situation, the more likely that more innocent people are going to get killed. That's just a fact. I mean, you can sit here and watch all the Netflix, Hollywood movies that you want to. You can listen to all the right-wing propaganda, but it's just not that case. It's not a cowboy Western out here. And so when it comes to when you're talking about the school system, when it talks about the school system, again, Stephen, shut up. We know you want us to be scared. You want us to be scared. We're not scared. So at the end of the day, you're going to call me a liar. You're going to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop. You're going to talk about Dr. Fauci. I get it, Stephen. So the idea, why are you attacking me? Why are you attacking me? Go play the piano. Go play that piano in the background. Go play your piano back there. Go play the piano. Because 9 times out of 10, you believe that's real. Because based on what you say on the show, you believe you really own a piano.
Cousin Todd.
Okay.
I give what I get.
Go play the piano, Stephen.
All right. The fact that those people were killed at that school is just heartbreaking. This is why 18-year-olds should never be allowed to have weapons of war. You should be at least 21. Hey. Shh.
Pretend like he was Black Lives Matter. That way you'll get it.
At least 21.
He was a BLM guy.
You're ignorant.
Have those guns.
You're scared.
Now, all right.
I'm not scared.
Yeah, you are.
Should have to be 21 to have those guns. It's no reason for
Your
a child to be able to.
99% of the 18-year-olds that have the guns
will
not commit murder.
Shut up, Stephen. Jesus.
So anyway, I don't know what a child would want with those kinds of weapons. So you should have to be 21 to, just like I think you should have to be 21 to go to war. You could be 18 to join the military, but 21 to go to war. To send children into war at 18 is just barbaric and sick to me. And I think we've just gotten used to it. But if you really think about it, your brain isn't even finished developing at 18. So that child should not have had the ability to buy those guns. And whoever sold him the guns should be investigated, which I think they are investigating that.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Remember when they got in Las Vegas? He shot a whole bunch of people from a hotel room. Do you remember that guy? He was in his 50s. Should 50-year-olds not have guns?
I do want to show you. We had a comment from a viewer. CYR Media at 8:02 p.m. said Fetterman seems brain damage from the stroke. And then that person also said the debate started, and that was at 8:02 p.m. And then we just had a comment from someone, Luke 10K said, what debate? So people are talking about the Dr. Oz Fetterman debate. We are out of time. We've gone
before we go, all of those debates were interesting, but I don't think any of them moved the needle. Because I think when you have people like Keith and Stephen who believe only Donald Trump and nobody else, no court.
We don't believe Donald Trump. We have our own independent minds. We're smart.
No, Donald Trump said the election was stolen,
you're going to go Republican.
No matter what the court
says.
I'm not a Republican. I'll vote for a good
You're not a lot of things. You're not intelligent.
To our first responders in our community, you make our lives livable. Thank you, thank you, thank you to our women and men of the U.S. military and all that you do in sacrificing your lives so that we are free to say whatever we choose on this show. We are forever and ever and ever indebted. On behalf of Aguna,
put your head up.
The Nigerian moderate Republican.
Go Phillies.
Keith, the constitutional conservative. Stephen.
That piano. Play the piano.
The independent thinker.
He's not the independent thinker.
And my cousin Todd.
Go play that Steinway.
I'm Stacey Johnson. Let's keep this conversation going. Check us out on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Stephanie Stallworth's The Flow Television Network. Like us and subscribe on YouTube under Sporlitics. And check out our new Instagram page Sporlitics on Instagram, where Aguna is probably going to show you more of his fun lifestyle, right, Aguna?
And we're going to be
I
asking.
try not to. There are a lot of jealous folks out there.
We're going to be asking questions on that Instagram. We're going to be asking, I think, 10 questions, because I'm going to come up with 2 or 3 tonight.
Oh Lord.
Yes, ma'am.
Walk with the Lord. Walk with the Lord. Be not afraid. Be not afraid.
Good night.
Good night.
Stephen. Hey, Stephen, we should call Aguna the Liz Cheney Republican. That's what he is.
That's exactly right.
But he's
But you're not a
cheating on Liz
Republican.
Cheney.
If you're not a
He's
Republican,
cheating
how
on
can
Liz
you label
Cheney.
what I am? Stephen, you can't call
You're
me
a
anything.
Republican.
You have to be a Republican to label me a Republican.
We have to
You're
thank
not a
Nas.
Republican.
Nas,
No, we
thank
don't
you for
have to.
coming on, because Todd
You
needed you.
label
Thank you,
yourself.
Nas.
You label yourself a Republican.
Okay.